The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is where we get a lot of the concepts of, color is protected, sex is protected, religion is protected. And then it was only a couple years after that you had this thing called the ADEA passed, which is the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, which got people thinking about ageism. But what's profoundly interesting in what you mentioned is it's the one act that we will all pass through. We'll all pass through a point in our lives where we get older. It's the one thing that of all the things that we go through, we will all experience that category at one point in our lives.
Right. Why everybody's trying to defend their little fiefdom or whatever, they're forgetting about the secondary thing that's going to get them no matter what. And as we live older, we're older, and younger people want more power quicker and seem to be getting it in many ways. That there's going to be this big gap, where you're going to have, they said that the person that is going to live to be 200 has been born already.
Wow.
And yeah. Jeez. And they're going to be driving in front of me. I know that. But I can't imagine that. And I don't think we are mature enough to deal with that. If we can go from people dying in their 80s or whatever to living to be 200, how do we account for the extra 120 years of dealing with our mega super elders?
Yeah, right. Especially at what point, do you, I guess we're still finding this out. At what point do you get to a certain age where, you're no longer progressing or advancing as a human being? I mean, being progressing and advancing and evolving being the one thing we're going to all do in this world is we're going to get, grow up and progress and, learn things and become different people and evolve into different people. And then at what point do you hit an age where you're no longer doing that anymore? Would that be at
51? That number's 51.
Boy, you gravitated right to that number right away.
I did. You get over the hump of 50 and you step off and there's just no floor. No, it's true, because at what point are you alive versus living?
Yeah.
And it's a tough call. In your private practice, when you dealt with this, did they tip on average, and I know it's just on average, did they find for the older person, or did you see evidence of ageism?
Did I see evidence of it? I would really have to dig to think if there was any case I had that really involved a real true fact pattern of somebody doing something because of age. Although I shouldn't, and as I'm saying that, I'm thinking about it and I'm walking it back and I'm thinking of examples of situations where no. I mean, in one case, I could think of, for example, a company had a culture of promoting younger people. And it was, this company's cultural background was such that it was a company from overseas. It was not based here, and the company's culture was specifically driven toward, younger people as the model for developing your succession plan. And they didn't see anything wrong with that. They couldn't understand, and they had a hard time struggling with American laws that make it very clear that, you should not be doing that. You should not be putting younger people above older people as a deliberate selection criteria for what kind of, promotions they get at work and things like that. It was very hard for them to understand that. So,
but you can do that to a degree back in and I'm pulling back on old memories. They had BFOQs, bona fide occupational quality.
Yeah.
So if you are doing if you're a skateboard manufacturer and somebody wants to get hired and they're 70 and just doesn't fit, and that wouldn't be breaking the law. That'd be logic. That'd be safety, Yeah. I
mean, it's hard to use those anymore. I can't think of a case where we really tried to hang a hat on a BFOQ, because it's so tough. It's so tricky to try to get into that world and defend a client by saying, oh, you did that, but it was bona fide. It was a bona fide reason.
Yeah, I don't think that the problem is really with people that are in their 60s or 70s and that number of what is older is going to change. I mean, everybody 10 years younger than you is a punk, and everybody 10 years older than you is old, and that's the way it always is, you know. So in the future, the 200-year-old man will be calling a 190-year-old man a punk, and the 210-year-old guy pops, you know. Right. But I think that it gets to a point where we're so, I don't know, we're wrapped up in thinking that those older numbers are where it's at. And the problem really is when somebody's in their late 40s or early 50s, that you're still a lot of people think you're too talented for a job. Why are you coming here? You're just going to leave. Mm-hmm. Or you have to dumb it down enough to where they won't hire you because you're too dumb. Or somebody sees you as a threat. Yeah. You know, because there's a guy there that's interviewing you that's half your age, and he immediately perceives you as a threat if you come across with any kind of, you know, cognitive ability. You know? Yeah,
and all of those considerations are nothing that the person sitting there can control. It's just their age that creates that. There's nothing about that other than their age that created that perception in other people's minds. Everything you listed there. Yeah.
So, and we don't have a choice of our age, you know. Yeah. So, you know, some of those other things we have a choice of. We don't have a choice of it, and and later in your.
Well, it's the only thing, too. It's the only category you don't start out with. I mean, I was born a certain race. Right. I was born a gender. I was born this. Now, at some point, I'm going to get pulled into this category.
Whether you want to or not.
Well, whether I want to or not.
Yeah.
I am there already.
Yeah.
So it pulls you to it. It is unique in that sense.
Yeah, it's completely unique, and I don't think anybody talks about it. And I see some people champion in odd ways, and, you know, they've got you thinking that, you know, everything ends up on a cruise ship and everything like that. And I don't think that's what really happens, you know, where you're playing shuffleboard and way too spry and everything. You know, they don't show you the part where you drop your keys and you kick them under your car and you crawl under and you get a cramp and catalytic converter burns you. And, you know, we've all been there.
I keep asking my wife, at what age do we get those separate bathtubs that we put out on the deck out back? You know, those separate bathtubs that you sit in on the deck out back.
Yeah.
And hold hands, and we stretch out our hands from across the...
Yeah, the ones that you had the door on them?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. At first I thought, you know, they came out right into transition on my age, where at first I thought, that's stupid. Why do you want to say it? And then it was like, ooh, safety. You know? Ooh, I could just sit in the bathtub all day. That's great. And, but it's funny because as you get, you know, there's signs of getting older, and it's the thing that happens to everybody. This, you know, I don't have a list, but things that pop into my mind is when you absolutely do not understand a commercial anymore. I can watch an entire commercial and not know what they're selling.
I don't even watch them. Yeah. I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you nowadays. I don't know whether it's a natural defensive mechanism where I'm just too bombarded with information. I couldn't tell you the last commercial I saw, yet I see them every time I watch TV.
Right, and you can't avoid things anymore because there's always screens around you, and you try not to, or you know, you watch a show like Saturday Night Live and just don't know who anyone is. You know, you don't know who anyone is, and you can't just scream at the TV like, "Where's James Taylor? Where's John Belushi?" You know, because that's like 30 years ago. And then you see, then the professionals you deal with, like yourself, start to be younger than you. They used to be older than you. You know, and then it happens when your doctor retires and now his son's there. You're like, "What are you doing in here?" "I'm the doctor. I'm your doctor now." I'm like, "Oh, no, you're not." "Oh, no, you're not." And it's just, you're right in the crux of that change. And it's interesting because I don't think that we don't get kids ready for getting older, and nobody gets us ready for getting older. And we kind of all keep marching through without any guidance, because I think what happens, every generation goes at some point, you know what, we should have a talk with these kids and help them. And then they go, screw it.
Yeah, right.
Screw it. I muscled through it. They can muscle through it too.
And what would your reaction be as a young person if someone older tried to help you do anything? My reaction when I was a teenager was, get out of my way.
Yeah, get out of my way. You're not going to tell me what to do.
Yeah, come on. I know better.
Just tell me what to do. Yeah. But there hits somewhere in your 40s or like right around 50 if an older person burps, you listen, because it's like, okay, I gotta learn some tricks here, because this is beating me up.
That's true.
This is beating me up, and it's like it just affects you different. You mature.
Yeah,
you mature. If you weren't a lawyer, what would you be?
Wow, man. I should have been prepared for that one too. Jeez. I don't know. I don't know that there is a particular thing that I was meant to be necessarily, or a career that was geared to my personality.
Female volleyball coach?
Well, okay, all right.
T-shirt store on the beach?
All right, touche. Obviously not those, but I mean, there's certainly I never viewed, and I still don't really view a job as something like, oh, I have to do this. Like these are my talents and I have to do them. I've always sort of viewed working as, I like working. I enjoy working very much, but it's about the work. It's not about like, I don't need a passion, or I don't need my career to be defining my personality.
It's not your identity.
Yeah, it's not my identity necessarily. I like to think I bring passion, to my work, not necessarily draw the passion from it.
And we'll do a little bit of this in a couple minutes, but you decided later in life, I guess, 10 years ago or so?
Not quite.
7 years.
Yeah, 7 years roughly.
7 years ago, to become a firefighter.
Yeah,
because you went in and bought a Christmas tree.
Yeah, I've been paying for that Christmas tree for years now.
That's the most expensive Christmas tree you ever bought.
Absolutely.
And it's unusual because not a lot of people decide to do it. I guess you were 33 or so. Usually people do it younger, and it's a community-based thing, so people grew up and grew into it versus coming in from the outside. And I think the people that come in from the outside have a different perspective on it than the people that were involved in it from not inception, but there's almost, in communities. Firefighting's different in different places. In Pennsylvania, it's really a community thing. And you get people that grew into it, and you knew who were going to be the next level of firefighters. And it's just unusual. And aside from the insurmountable cost of that tree, you've enjoyed it.
Yes, I have,
and continue to enjoy it.
Yeah, and I a couple people said something to me at one point, like, well, what's it like being a lawyer and being a firefighter? I have a couple people, and it's always been inside the fire service community. They're really interested in the fact that I'm a lawyer and I do the volunteer fire service. Outside of that volunteer community, no one really cares.
Yeah, the lawyers don't care. They don't ask you about anything. It's the firefighters. So
they're more curious about it. Like, what makes you do this? And that kind of thing. No, but I found it very, very, very rewarding, and not something that I planned on doing at 33 or 34. I think I was 34 when I did it, when I started getting into it. But yeah, I never set out to do it. I don't think in any point in my youth I was even remotely community interested. I wasn't a responsible, mature, forward-looking teenager. I was like every other punk that grew up in my town. I was an all-American nobody that just liked to hang out and have fun.
Get in an acceptable amount of trouble.
Yeah, get an acceptable, healthy amount of trouble.
Did you ever feel that you did this to kind of balance the scales a little bit?
As I try to think about it a little bit, I think that what was happening in my life at that point was I was just getting a little bit more mature and realizing I had only been married for like 4 months at that point. So I think I was getting a little bit more mature in my focus. I realized I wasn't the center of the universe anymore. So I started to look around me a little bit more. And the thing I distinctly remember striking me about it was when I went to go buy the Christmas tree from the Winmore Host Company. I go to buy it, and they start explaining to me what a volunteer fire service is. And now, can you imagine, like at 34, not really ever thinking about that?
Yeah.
Talk about being self-centered up until that point.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the after show. I want to talk about that part of it, because that's a little more interesting than the lawyer part. No offense to the lawyers.
No, listen, it is. It's more interesting.